topic I chose was what was the future of the meat industry. My thesis is the meat industry needs to embrace the manufactured meat industry, but it can fill in bottlenecks and gaps that are currently in the marketplace. It can reduce bloodborne pathogens from food, and it will reduce the impact on the environment. Currently, there are around 957 million people who classify as people who do not have enough to eat. This problem stems from many different variables: rising fuel costs, rising food costs, drought, famine, pandemics, and a broken supply chain. As we have seen recently because of the pandemic, meat supply chains have failed, leading to wasted product and meat not getting the market globally. How can we solve this problem? Increase the supply of proteins on the market. A lot like not putting all your eggs in one basket, meat substitutes can fill in these gaps where the livestock meat market has failed or needs help. So this is a problem of increasing the supply to match demand. This alone will not solve world hunger, but it will be one less problem and issue for these undernourished communities to deal with. Another huge advantage of the advancement of substitute meat products is its emergence into the market is the ability to reduce pathogens and illnesses from meat to almost zero. Much like the bovine, spongiform, encephaly, or mad cow disease, our meat products are often come from places that are forced to overuse antibiotics and industrial cleaning solutions to counter the horrific conditions the livestock are in. A biologist named Shirim wrote about one such farm she visited in Vietnam where a large portion of the world's shrimp product come from. She recounted seeing the shrimp pond and noticed it resembled that of raw sewage. Because of this, the farmers had to use bleaches and antibiotics to counter the pathogens in the water that would infect the shrimp and ruin their product. It's not common for illnesses from animals to cross into humans, and often this causes major panic in the populations. Meat substitutes like plant-based and in vitro give us options that will ensure that we can reduce the chances of pathogens that are passed into humans to almost zero. Plant-based are made from plants, so there is no pathogens able to cross over, and in vitro is grown without the living animal in a lab. Because of this, all the meat products are under observation, and there is no need to counter any illness with antibiotics, cleaners, or concern with the animals eating. To top it off, Dr. Bryant has stated that it's very clear that at least 14.5% of all greenhouse gas emissions in the world are from industrial animal farming. If you think about growing what it takes to grow an animal, you need to also grow massive amounts of crops to feed them. When you add up all the water, land, and CO2 emissions from crops harvesting and then add it to livestock care and growth, you get a sizable number. There have been articles and stories of how meat substitutes are loaded with sugar and oils to make them taste better, and because of this, they are often worse for you. This is false. This may have been the case when the products first came out many, many years ago because there was no profit in making these items. Since there was not a high demand for them and companies didn't make them, they used cheap ingredients. Today, because of the boom in popularity, companies have invested tons of money in research to improve these products to make them not just easier to make, but also healthier as well. Another concern some people have is if we are forced to grow more crops to meet the demand of product for these products, we will have to spread more pesticides, which leach into the ground. While it has been proven that only 1% of pesticides actually are effective against the pests they were applied for, the rest leach into the ground, and up to 70% of all water polluted in the United States is from commercial farming. But here's where you must use critical thinking. To grow livestock, you need to grow crops. If demand for meat is increasing, the need for more crops will increase as well. So if you send the crops to the end user instead of the livestock, you will have less crops to feed, or you have more crops to feed the mass and less crops to feed the livestock. This is because if you compare water usage from crops and livestock to just crops, the amount of used on just crops alone is much lower per ton than for meat products. In summary, the meat industry will never go away, and it shouldn't. There'll always be people who prefer real meat over substitutes, and that's okay. But the industry needs to make room for the substitute meats in order to allow for reduced bottlenecks in supply, to meet the ever-growing demand, reduce chances of bloodborne pathogens and pandemics, and reduce the impact on the environment. Thank you.